We're going to look at it. So foul there on Indiana, on Hull there. But then that is a technical.
That is a technical. Dead ball, contact technical.
It's a little surprising to see so many of these happen in one game because...
Oh, and I don't like the way Lexie Hull...
Did the Indiana Fever just deliver the kind of payback that flips a franchise's entire narrative? For months, the conversation around Indiana was about survival. Injuries piled high, rotations looked paper-thin, and critics said the Fever's season was already lost the moment Caitlin Clark went down. But then came the regular season finale against the Minnesota Lynx, a game that transformed from just another matchup into something symbolic. This wasn't simply about chasing a win. It was about answering every doubt that had trailed the team all year. The Fever didn't just scrape by. They didn't limp into the postseason with an exhausted roster and low expectations. They stormed into it, silencing critics with an 83-72 win over Minnesota that felt like a line in the sand. For a franchise that hasn't finished above .500 since 2015, the performance meant far more than a number in the standings. It was a culmination of resilience, frustration turned into fuel, and redemption that came in the form of Lexie Hull crossing up Kayla McBride, the same opponent who had left her bloodied weeks earlier. That one moment captured everything Indiana had been through: the pain, the fight, and the belief that the best stories come when nobody sees them coming.
Final score, Fever 83, Lynx 72. Indiana ends the regular season with an exclamation point. Fever have won 3 in a row as they enter the playoffs.
But before we dive deeper into how this team pulled it off, we need to rewind to the turning point that could have broken their season. Caitlin Clark's groin injury was first labeled nagging, then week to week, until finally, the official word dropped. Her rookie campaign was over. For a team leaning on her energy to fast-track credibility, that announcement felt like a gut punch. It wasn't just about losing a star scorer, it was about losing a heartbeat. Indiana had every reason to collapse after that news, and plenty of fans braced for the fall. Yet instead of folding, the Fever rewrote their own script.
I know a lot of people will talk about Nafisa not playing, but I think they're really good without her. You know, they're just a really great basketball team. So I think it was a big win for us because they set the bar high standard wise. We know what to expect when it comes to Minnesota Lynx, and so I think going into the playoffs, it was big for us because being able to know guarding Courtney Williams, knowing that her thing is a pull-up, knowing that now instead of not knowing that, it's big for us because we give ourselves a chance. And if they are the standard, we get to see where we are.
And that's exactly why you should stick with us here. If you're watching and haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that subscribe button, tap the like, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on how the Fever can make noise in the playoffs. Because every voice adds to this community. But there's more. We've set up something extra for true women's basketball fans. Go to basketplay.online and join our free newsletter. By signing up, you'll not only get exclusive updates and insider takes straight to your inbox, but you'll also receive our free downloadable guide, a perfect resource to deepen your knowledge of the game. If you're serious about following the stories no one else is telling, this is your chance to be part of something bigger.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been impressed with these guys since even the offseason, really, the ones that I was able to work out with in the offseason, is how hard they work. There's a work ethic and there's a work style. And to approach everything in the same way, to be so energetic, enthusiastic, and dedicated every day. And I felt that way in training camp too. There weren't any days where I had to bring that out of them. So I think it's the nature of the women that we've brought into this organization to continue to just bust their butts and play hard.
The Fever lost Clark, yes, but what followed became the heart of this season. Players stepping up, finding new roles, and proving they didn't need excuses to stay relevant. That resilience became the very fuel that carried them through the toughest stretches, and as we'll see in the next sections, it was Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and an unlikely bench crew who turned what looked like disaster into something unforgettable.
Kind of all the other things like offensive rebounding that she can do.
Knocked away. Boston comes up with a steal. Here's Mitchell veering through the paint and lays it in.
She's so quick, and especially when she gets out in the open floor, you'll see her coming down. The quick left to right crossover just gets by. I thought she was sprinting. I didn't think she was lumbering.
It was a lumber sprint.
Up for the big girl.
Mitchell like a blur. That's a
When Clark went down, the Fever were staring at a void that looked impossible to fill. Teams in that position usually fade into the background, chalk up the year as a what could have been, and wait for the draft lottery. But Indiana had a different response. Someone had to wear the target, and Kelsey Mitchell didn't just accept that burden, she embraced it with authority.
Only 8 teams have ever done that. 7 of them went on to win the title. As Boston gets free and lays it in.
She will be on my first team.
Boston in the paint, sneaks through 2 and lays it in.
Night after night, Mitchell's speed off the dribble and ability to carve through defenses made her impossible to ignore. Double teams didn't rattle her, scouting reports didn't slow her down, and by late August she had broken the single-season scoring record for the franchise. That wasn't a hollow milestone. It was the evidence that this roster had a centerpiece who could keep them in any game. Without Clark, Mitchell became the North Star, proving that Indiana's identity didn't vanish with one injury.
Fever done with the MVP, okay? Bow, bow, bow! Hell yeah. You already know what it is. Dubs in the chat, you already know what it is. You already know what it is. Let's go to the playoffs with some momentum, baby.
But no star does it alone. Aaliyah Boston became the anchor in the paint, pulling down rebounds that stabilized entire quarters. With over 8 boards a game in the final stretch and a new franchise record to her name, Boston was more than a presence. She was a guarantee. Every possession she fought for was a reminder that Indiana had toughness stitched into its DNA. When the roster thinned, she became the metronome that kept the Fever from losing rhythm.
Before the playoffs start Sunday tonight, it's regular season game 44 of 44 for the Fever as they host the WNBA's best team in 2025, the Minnesota Lynx.
Yet even with Mitchell scoring and Boston controlling the boards, one story kept following Indiana: Lexie Hull versus Kayla McBride. In their August clash, McBride's elbow caught Hull across the face, leaving fans stunned when referees handed Hull the technical. The clip replayed across social media with outrage building. How could the victim get punished? That incident didn't just bruise Hull. It symbolized how the Fever themselves often felt overlooked and undervalued.
It'll be Alana Smith jumping it up against Aaliyah Boston. The ball is tipped, and it's time to hoop at Indy.
A 10-0 run to start this game for Indiana, and Minnesota wants a timeout.
Powers up top, tees it up, 3. It's good! Energy!
Kicks it out, Powers. You bet! Back-to-back threes from Aerial Powers.
The Fever double up the Lynx in the first quarter. It's Indiana 28, Minnesota 14.
So when the schedule handed them a rematch against Minnesota in the regular season finale, the narrative practically wrote itself. Hull wasn't supposed to be the star of the night, but the emotion attached to her matchup made every possession feel like a test of character. Would she shrink under the weight of that memory? Or would she take the chance to flip the script in the most visible way possible? Fans didn't just want to win, they wanted closure.
Indiana is 4 for 4 from three-point range. Mitchell connects on a 3. Sims leaning jumper is good.
Kelsey driving left, puts it in off the backboard.
Will to it for the first half. Indiana shoots 58% from the floor.
And what they got was more than that. Hull's play, especially her moment of shaking McBride on a crossover, wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation. It was the chance to turn a low point into a highlight that defined resilience. That play didn't win the game alone, but it symbolized everything Indiana had been building toward: toughness, memory, and the refusal to stay down.
Mitchell, open 3. It's good. You can. Elsie Mitchell is a hooper.
Passes Dantas left corner three. Bullseye. Shot clock. Boston left block makes it in.
From the moment the ball went up on September 9th, the Fever weren't playing tentative basketball. They punched first, rattling off a 10-0 run that set the tone for the entire game. The Lynx, a team known for grinding opponents into submission, suddenly looked stuck in neutral. Indiana wasn't just surviving. They were dictating tempo, forcing Minnesota to adjust and taking the oxygen out of the arena with each bucket. By halftime, the lead wasn't a fluke. Indiana's pressure defense kept the Lynx cold from beyond the arc, finishing just 2 for 20 from deep. That stat alone told the story. Every contested shot, every deflection, every hard closeout made Minnesota look less like a contender and more like a team caught in quicksand. It wasn't about luck, it was about execution.
Fever done with the MVP, okay? Bow, bow, bow! Hell yeah. You already know what it is. Dubs in the chat, you already know what it is. You already know what it is. Let's go to the playoffs with some momentum, baby.
The Fever had every reason to let nerves show, but instead they looked unshakable. The ball movement was crisp, the rotations tight, and the poise obvious. It wasn't just the stars carrying the load. It was the entire roster buying into the idea that they could finish the regular season with a signature win.
Here's Mitchell. I think that's a 2. Doesn't go. And now it's McBride getting Hull. Yeah, that one might be a problem. Indiana just taking shots to the face.
When you think about playoff teams, you often think about the stars. But it's the bench that turns momentum, and Indiana's bench showed up like they had been waiting all year for this moment. Odyssey Sims, signed mid-season as a hardship addition, attacked with confidence. Her 15 points weren't filler. They were gut punches to a Minnesota defense that didn't have answers.
Tonight for Indiana, but then Bolton gives it right back, and Howard cashes in.
To perform like this, but they have 5 different players almost at all times who can bring the ball up the floor. Usually 4 or 5 were adept at making shots from deep. I mean, you just saw a big there creating her own look as well from Natasha Howard. Career high in terms of her field goal percentage, and you see her here, the little spin to the middle. That's a tough shot.
Then came Aerial Powers, who buried back-to-back threes at the exact moment the Lynx threatened to claw back into the game. Those shots weren't just 6 points. They were a swing of belief. Minnesota's bench slumped. The Fever's crowd roared, and the momentum never shifted back again. Plays like those don't make headlines the way Clark or Mitchell do, but inside the locker room, teammates know how much those sequences matter.
One of those players who is messy, and she's on your team, you want her, and she's on the other team, she's just annoying. Right? You just gets in and kind of rip the ball out of Smith's hands and just end the effort.
The Fever's identity wasn't just written by stars. It was reinforced by players who refused to let the team bend. The unsung punch of the bench turned a dangerous opponent into just another check mark in the win column. On paper, it ended 83-72. But the box score carried layers of meaning that went beyond the final buzzer. Shooting nearly 48% from the field, locking down Minnesota to 10% from 3, and leading wire-to-wire sent a message. This wasn't a lucky night, it was control. The Fever didn't squeak by, they dominated statistically and emotionally. And that win wasn't isolated. It capped a 3-game win streak that carried them into the postseason with momentum. More importantly, it sealed a 24-20 record, the franchise's first winning season since 2015. For a team that's been rebuilding, retooling, and reimagining itself for nearly a decade, that milestone was a cultural reset. The narrative of Indiana being stuck in mediocrity evaporated in one season. The Fever now head into the playoffs with confidence and a seed that gives them real chances to make noise. A winning record isn't just about pride, it's about earning respect, and the rest of the league has no choice but to take them seriously now. Every franchise has a moment where its story changes direction. For Indiana, this season was supposed to be about Clark's emergence. Instead, it became about something deeper: resilience. When a team loses its star and still finds ways to win, that speaks volumes about the system, the culture, and the willingness of every player to step into the spotlight. Mitchell's record-breaking scoring nights weren't just fireworks. They were proof that the Fever don't fold under pressure. Boston's rebounding streak wasn't just statistics. It was the foundation of a defense that held up under the heaviest strain. And Hull's redemption wasn't just a viral clip. It was the symbol of a team that remembered the pain and turned it into fuel. This isn't a team that needs sympathy anymore. This is a team that demands respect. And in the playoffs, that attitude can be more dangerous than any individual star. Now comes the test: the Atlanta Dream. A matchup that pits Indiana's newfound identity against a team built on pace and perimeter speed. Atlanta thrives on forcing mismatches and pulling defenses apart. But Indiana's answer is ready. With Boston anchoring the middle and Mitchell capable of punishing switches, the Fever have the blueprint to make this series a war of attrition. The difference maker will be the supporting cast. If Sims continues her confident attacks and Powers delivers from deep, Indiana won't just survive Atlanta's pace, they'll control it. In playoff basketball, depth often decides the margins, and the Fever's bench has already proven they can swing momentum in high-pressure games. This isn't just about making the playoffs. It's about announcing to the league that Indiana isn't a feel-good story anymore. They're a problem. And if Atlanta underestimates them, this series could turn quickly. So what does it all mean? It means that a season that should have collapsed instead transformed into something historic. Indiana ended with its first winning record in nearly a decade, entered the playoffs with momentum, and reclaimed its identity through grit, redemption, and a refusal to let circumstances define them. From Mitchell's scoring dominance to Boston's steadiness, from bench players stepping into the spotlight to Lexie Hull flipping the script against McBride, this team built its credibility brick by brick. But here's the part where you come in. If you've enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit subscribe, smash that like button, and drop a comment telling us whether you think Indiana can upset Atlanta in the first round. And don't forget, for deeper coverage, exclusive analysis, and the free guide we've put together just for you, go to basketplay.online and join our free newsletter. It's the best way to stay plugged into women's basketball stories that often go untold. This isn't just the end of Indiana's regular season. It feels like the beginning of a new era. And if you want to be part of that story as it unfolds, stay with us. Subscribe, sign up, and get ready for the ride ahead.